Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan. Thank you for joining me. My guest today is Dr. Kristin Stehouwer, Academic Vice President and Provost for Northwood University. Kristin, for those that don't know, tell us a little bit about Northwood University.
Northwood University is a university focused on business education, and we have a footprint that includes the Great Lakes Bay region based here in Midland, but we also have a national and global footprint as well, with operations in the United States and 5 locations internationally.
And what does an academic, vice president and provost do? What are your responsibilities?
Well, that falls into 2 main categories, I would say, the what and the how. And the what is in 3 main facets, if you will, and that would be fulfilling our mission as a university. And our mission is that we develop leaders who drive global economic and social progress. And every element of our mission is meaningful to us and informs our daily decisions. And that's another aspect that's specific about Northwood, is that we have a free enterprise philosophy that infuses our entire learning environment. The second aspect is advancing our strategy, which really is how we innovate and fulfill our mission in new and different ways to provide more value to our stakeholders, particularly our students. And then the last thing is to assure quality, which is really the fulfillment of our promise to our students and our stakeholders that they will learn the things and they will be able to do the things we promise that they'll be able to do with the Northwood education. But the how is where it gets really interesting, and that's the people side of the equation. And how I like to look at it, I had a Spanish professor once who said, you can't do anything without verbs. And in organizations, you can't do anything without people. And so that's
pronouns.
Part that I love so much about my work, is that it's really creating an environment for people to do their very best work.
Kristin, how do you prepare for a job like that with vast responsibilities in different areas?
I think everything, my life's journey has prepared me, and the twists and turns that my life journey has taken me on have prepared me for my work every day. I'd say that it's as fundamental, higher education is as fundamental as transforming people's lives through learning, or even better put, it's helping them transform their own lives through learning. So it's really just about creating a learning environment.
What makes for a learning environment for people, or most people? A productive learning environment?
There are several ingredients. I think one, and this ties back to Northwood University's philosophy, is individual freedom and personal responsibility. We create an environment both inside and outside the classroom for people to learn, and they learn the theoretical, but they also learn by doing. I love to say that part of our DNA as a university is the experiential learning part of the equation. And so in that environment, we are creating a way for them to see new possibilities for themselves. And in the role of provost or academic vice president, I lead all of the academic operations. It's also to create an environment for our faculty and staff to do that as well.
How do you do it for faculty?
Well, at Northwood University, we have faculty members who bring experience in their professions to the classroom. So they have the academic qualifications that they would need to teach at the college level. And then also they have the business experience, the life experience in the areas in which they teach. So really it's just helping them unleash that potential, but also creating an environment where they're continually learning and expanding their knowledge base, because knowledge isn't static. And so we encourage them to conduct research. And this past fall, we had a wonderful reception where we celebrated our faculty members' research, and they did short talks about how they, what their research topics were, 10 to 12 minutes. And it was so exhilarating that a faculty member came to me and said, "Could we do this every week? This was fantastic."
You know, you've written a lot or prepared a lot in leadership. Are there different styles of leadership in academics versus, say, business?
Oh, I love that question, Junia, because part of my passion is it plays out in terms of really treating business or treating academics as an arena similar to business, in that we owe it to ourselves and our stakeholders to identify best practices and migrate them from other industries and sectors. And the work that I've been able to do as a volunteer for the Baldrige National Quality Program has exposed me to really the epicenter of the quality movement across all sectors in the United States. And so there are some things that just it's exciting to see opportunities to bring analytics into higher education, or translate practices that work well in higher in healthcare into higher education, and other examples.
What makes a person good as a student?
Well, I'd like to tie it back to Northwood's philosophy of individual freedom and personal responsibility. And it's that freedom, taking advantage and capitalizing on the freedom that they have as students to learn, and then taking personal responsibility. It makes me think about last week where we welcomed in our international students who are joining us mid-year for spring semester, and they are pursuing their degrees at Northwood University. And having been an international student myself, I was able to share that I applaud their courage also. It takes courage to be a learner, because really our mental models, we have to be willing every single time we learn anything to challenge our mental models, because we're adding new information into our world and we're incorporating it until we learn the next thing.
So, who, I want to say inspired you, but who encouraged you to be that courageous?
Oh, it starts at home with my parents, I'm sure. That's, and my family, my extended family. They are the bedrock of my life. And my parents always expected that I would make the most of my potential. And that's a heavy responsibility for all of us, is to fulfill our potential. And the sky was the limit. And they were cheering me along all the way and providing support. My grandparents and extended family, just a really supportive environment.
So, what were the earliest goals you thought about for yourself?
To always be learning. I think I've just had an insatiable desire to learn more, with the purpose of doing things with that learning. So applied learning, and that's why I love how we do things at Northwood University, because it's about learning and then applying it. And at Northwood, we focus on a philosophy of philanthropy as well, a culture of philanthropy. So with great success comes great responsibility. And so that's something that we work to infuse our environment at Northwood University. And that's where, when I tie it back to what has inspired me, I see people who've accomplished a great deal, but they've also been so generous in giving back to others. I had a Russian professor who was just she had escaped the Soviet Union and valued the freedoms we have in the United States. And she did me a great favor at one point, writing a letter of recommendation. And there was no way I could repay her for that. And I told her that. And I asked her, I just am at a loss because I wish I could thank you. And she said, please just do the same for somebody else. So it was the first time I ever heard the concept of pay it forward. She didn't use those words, but that was really
Right.
what
How wise of her. Do you say
absolutely.
that to your students?
Absolutely. And we do it in so many ways, but I just think that it's that responsibility. It's that freedom, and the obverse of freedom is responsibility to do good with it and to make the world a better place. And it ties back to that phrase in our mission. And we're creating an environment for our students to have the impact that they wish to have. So it's that they can drive economic and social progress, however they define that. And we have one of our strategic initiatives that I'm just thrilled about, that we focused on last year and created the platform for students to be able to personalize and customize their education and tailor it to what impact they wish to have.
So I went to a college where it was sink or swim. Is there much of a advisor mentoring older friend at Northwood that sort of helps at the beginning and maybe even later on?
Yes, and that ties to another initiative that we have, and I love that, think or swim, Junia. That's such a great phrase. And we really do need to learn how to think. My brother has a plaque on his desk that says "Think," and I love
Right,
that.
IBM.
Yes, yes, he got it from IBM. And it's such a great reminder because we go on autopilot so much. And then in tying back to the supportive and mentoring environment, another aspect of how we're fulfilling our mission and advancing our strategy at Northwood is the student success model, and meeting our students holistically as people and meeting them where they are. So every student coming in has an academic advisor to help them navigate through their academic program, which includes those choices I mentioned on customizing their educational experience to the impact they want to have, and also a success coach. So they come in with this team of an academic advisor and a student success coach, helping them holistically achieve the success that they wish. And then also we have programs where students mentor other programs. I think back even to our learning about business camp for middle school and high school students, and we have campers who come back and mentor other campers, and they aspire to do that, and then they come in as students and provide that mentorship to other students as well. So it really takes all of us pulling together to create that optimal environment for unleashing every individual's potential.
So, Kristen, what is a success coach? Is that a student? Is that a professor? Is it an outside person? And what content or what does it look for or help to accelerate or dig them out of a ditch?
Our success coaches are staff members, and many of them have experience in the classroom. And they help students with things like time management, organizing skills, but also some of those greater picture questions about where do they want to be as they graduate and then project 5 years out, and what do they want their life impact to be. So they really help them in times of trouble and also times of joy. I have heard from our success coaches that students will sometimes come in and just run in and just enthusiastically share, I tried this and it worked and it was so successful. Maybe it was passing an exam, or doing something with one of our experiential learning events like the Northwood University International Auto Show, or our Stafford Dinner for the hospitality program, or our style show. But it's just they share in our student success. They help them put the pieces together and be more successful.
That seems a huge benefit that Northwood is offering.
It is. It's something we piloted in the past 2 years, and it was so successful that we decided to expand it to serve all of our undergraduate students, and in fact our graduate students, as they need that additional support. And they come in often seasoned professionals, but they also might need a little success coaching at times as well. But it's something
We
that
all do.
yeah, don't we though? And
Remember my grandmother saying, life is like the weather. Yeah, so when the storm comes, you got to prepare or to handle it one way or another. Um, you once said to me that Northwood is your life's work. Uh, what would you like to see when you talk about the impact a student could have? What would you personally like to see?
Well, it ties back to our mission of developing leaders who drive economic and social progress. And we have so much evidence of our graduates being successful business people, very successful in their communities. So it's really that multiplier effect, Junia, of making the world a better place through the skills and philosophy that we have, that a free enterprise society leads to outstanding outcomes, and it's something that can unleash everyone's potential. So it's really, I'd say, at a macro level, it's that. And having been in the classroom myself, I'd say it's at the individual level that it's the most meaningful, where somebody will say it's thanks to Northwood's education that I've been able to be this success and also to give back.
I think sometimes our goals change as we develop, and that's Maslow's, whatever he called it. First you have to eat and so forth, and then higher and higher you go as you succeed at the lower ones. But what made you do a doctorate in political science?
Ooh, well, my focus really was on international relations, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to be a Rotary Foundation ambassadorial scholar after I graduated from Northwestern University with my bachelor's degree in political science. And I spent a year in Strasbourg, France. And I'd say one of the pivotal moments was being in Alsace, that bordering region that's part of France, between France and Germany. And I spent a lot of time, as I walked by the great cathedral in that town, I was just able to dip in and take a look at the stained glass windows, et cetera. And later I learned that the famed philosopher Goethe did that as a student as well, which is certainly wonderful company to be in terms of being inspired by that wonderful space. But I went to the Museum of Alsatian History and I saw a picture of the swastika hanging inside the cathedral and Adolf Hitler walking, a photo of him inside the cathedral. And it really struck home in terms of how near in history that conflict was, how close it was to the people. And at that point, there were people who'd been children during World War II and had experienced the Nazi regime in their homeland. And so I realized that those powerful forces of conflict were very present for those people. And that inspired me to focus on international relations and diplomacy that led to the peaceful ending of the Cold War and the unification of Germany.
What did you learn that was useful?
Oh my goodness. That's one where I think there were pivotal moments in the ending of the Cold War. The opening of the Berlin Wall was certainly one that was unexpected. The the storm clouds were brewing for the Soviet Empire in the Eastern Bloc, but when the Berlin Wall opened, that was certainly a pivotal moment. I'd say, though, what I learned is the power of vision. And Helmut Kohl, shortly in that period following the opening of the Berlin Wall, put together his 10-point plan for the unification of Germany. And everyone thought it was crazy. And they thought it would take decades for those 10 points to come into place. And so even those who feared a unified Germany, and that's probably a conversation for another day, but even those who feared it said, sure, that's they provided their support, their tacit support, but that just came into place. And shortly, really just a little over a year later, we had a unified Germany, and that powerful vision shaped the outcomes. And I'd say George Herbert Walker Bush also, how he handled that. I learned that a quiet leader. He didn't dance on the Berlin Wall, which could have really upset, could have, it,
Right.
it
Ground,
could be an
right.
explosive result in terms of how on edge the Soviet Empire was. But he was he kept it low key, even though it was one of the biggest events that we have seen in our lifetime. So, two things: vision, and then the quiet and powerful leader.
I remember Reagan asked in one of his speeches, asked Gorbachev or told Gorbachev to tear down this wall. But there was such internal debate within the White House. He wanted to say it. His speechwriters and foreign policy and all the other people were against it. They were ripping it out of the speech. And I don't know if it's the last minute or always intended to say it, but it was compelling to listen to that because it gave in that second or choose it, the vision that you're talking about. There is, in fact, an opportunity on one side or both sides or whatever. Who knows what that inspired, you know? So
And
that one turned out well, but it was hard on Western Germany to absorb these people and train them.
yes. And it was really admirable how Reagan, and there was debate about whether he was losing it at that point, especially to say something like that. And it turns out that it was a visionary moment, and it reshaped our world. It was one of those precursors that led to the opening of the Berlin Wall on November 9th, 1989. And it really, I think, is a reinforcement to challenge the status quo. And if we take things full circle, what is learning but challenging the status quo, challenging what we believe to know to be true, and stimulating our minds and changing our lives and those of others by gaining new knowledge and being open to that.
Do you think politicians learn from experience? That's a really general question. But I was thinking that they have the bureaucracies, they have the voters, everybody, is on them one way or another. But when a policy isn't working, do they take ownership? In many cases, it just seems there's a lot of blame.
There's so much pressure on politicians, and I've been asked as to whether I'd ever consider running for office, and the answer is an emphatic no. I admire those who have the courage to serve in that way. It's a very difficult role to be in. I think the good politicians are constantly looking for ways to improve things, and that's what drew them in the first place. I think sometimes they get bogged down in some of the polemics and the dichotomy that exists right now, but I hope that they're able to channel what originally inspired them to get into public service and make a difference.
Doesn't being president of the country club give you a lot of experience in dealing with individuals who have their own points of view?
Well, I look at that as a gift, and the members are wonderful, and the staff and our team at the country club are just so service oriented, and they're constantly challenging the status quo to make the membership experience better, but also our community better. We recognized in the most recent strategic plan that people want to make a difference. And when you have a private club like that, it's something that also is, we have the privilege of belonging to such a beautiful club, but we also want to give back. So our teams have been able to do things for against hunger and other kinds of service projects, which is a great situation. But thanks to the staff and the team.
Thank you, Kristin. So, of course, learner that I am, I've learned a lot from you, and also about Northwood. Do you know about setting your goals for the future, the mission, so to speak? And, I'm thinking as an 18-year-old, you can have one mission. By the time you're 45, you might have an exalted or different mission. But in any case, the idea of responsibility, the idea of, like your parents said, use everything about yourself, because in essence a gift, and to also bear the ability to clean up, which you didn't exactly say, but I'm sure it's imputed. And so I would ask people, firstly, to thank Kristin, because to educate is to live, or to be curious is to be alive. But I want to say to my loyal audience, as I say every time, please go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it every day going forward till I see you next week. We need help. Sometimes it's giving food, sometimes it's a smile. Do what you can. Appreciate it, Kristin. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadonsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadonsthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.